to yet another episode of the Game Plan podcast, powered by the Middlesex University, Dubai, and the London Sport Institute in Dubai. Today with us, we've got former India international from field hockey, who has represented India in 145 internationals, not limiting to the Olympics, Commonwealth Games, and World Cups. Jude Menezes. Let's dive straight into the episode and know more about his inspiring story. Welcome. This is the Middlesex University and London Sport Institute exclusive. Today we have a very, very special guest with us. The youngest of 8 children. He was born and grew up in Orlem, a very small suburb in Mumbai, in India, in the mid-1980s, and was very limited to a sport which had a limited infrastructure. With me, I have Jude Menezes. He is a former Indian hockey international goalkeeper, and he's got a number of caps behind his name. He's got 145 plus internationals for India that not only include World Cups, but also include the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics. Jude has migrated to the New Zealand from 2002, and after a break from hockey, has made a mark as the first coach of the New Zealand women's hockey team, and of course then the head coach of Japan's women's hockey team. He's currently the head of the Auckland hockey and responsible for strategy, implementation of plans to nurture talent. Jude brings with him his immense experience as an Olympian, coach, and high-performance planner. We're delighted to welcome Jude to this London Sports Institute exclusive powered by Middlesex University, Dubai. Jude, it's such a pleasure to have you alongside with us.
My pleasure, Shavi. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's wonderful to have somebody so inspirational as you, and as much as I've heard about you and all the little reading that I've done about you, your story is nothing less than inspirational. So I'm going to get a lot of information out of you today, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away.
Just to get our conversation started, and to know more of how things started with field hockey. Of course, hockey used to be such a big game in India back in the day. Of course, in the 1980s, the infrastructure again was not very well equipped. But could you give us a snapshot of your journey from how you debuted for India in 1992, the 145 plus international games that you've played, everything that has got to do with the Olympics, Commonwealth, everything that you can give us in a little short snapshot?
Yeah, it's been a long time ago, so I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible. I grew up in a little suburb in Bombay, in a little town Orlem, Malad. It was a hockey center, hockey hub. So a lot of growing up, there was always hockey played in our school ground. So as a kid, we should just go down and play there every day. And my brother's a former hockey player. He played for Bombay, which was at that time a very strong state. And we grew up with that aspiration of trying and playing hockey as much as possible. Then transitioned from there used to be a version of rink hockey in Bombay. So I started playing rink hockey in Bombay, but it was 5-a-side. And I dabbled a little bit. I used to play football growing up, so wasn't much of a hockey player until I actually started playing rink hockey, and then got my first break for Tata Sports. I played sub junior and junior Bombay, so age group hockey, and then got my breaks in Tata Sports Club, which was a top club in Bombay. Then moved on to Mahindra and Mahindra, which is also another top club in Bombay, and then finally finished my career with Bharat Petroleum. So I had really good grounding all along the way from my mentors in all these 3 clubs. And from there on, because we were playing in all India tournaments, playing all over India, I got selected into the India under-21s, played in the juniors in 1992, and then was in the senior camps ever since. So, and then, it took me a while to get into the national team. I was in camps from 92 to 97 and finally got my breakthrough in 97. And then went on to play until I retired in 2002. So I think that's a brief snapshot of my journey right from this time. I started off in a small town in Orlem to then playing for India.
It's so wonderful to see how a journey really shapes us as an individual, and how we how things change over a period of time, the time that you started playing sport. If just to maybe revisit that time again, you did mention that your brother was a national hockey player, so very naturally, was that the reason you were inclined towards the sport, or was there something else? Because you did also mention you did play football growing up.
Yeah, until I was 14, I think football was my passion and what I was really intending to go towards. But I was just fortunate with my breaks I got my breaks in hockey. So I think that's why I then pursued hockey a lot more. And yes, my brother was a big influence growing up. But initially, my focus, my passion was football. And I wanted to play football for India.
Either way, you have 145 plus caps for India across some of the biggest tournaments that somebody could dream of, and it's truly a pleasure. I mean, I woke up with a lot of energy this morning because I knew that I was interviewing an Olympian, and I said, there's moments like this don't come, so I'm considering myself extremely lucky this morning to be alongside you.
No, it's my pleasure. So I'm really happy to be here.
You've represented India in some major tournaments. We've been talking about that for a while now. Like the Champions Challenge in 2001, I think that was probably one of the key events just before 2002. Like you mentioned, you retired.
Yeah.
Is there in your career, in your playing career particularly, any one particular moment that stands out for you, and why?
There were a couple of games. There've been a lot of games, so it's really hard to pinpoint. There are a couple of special games, but the game that we played against Pakistan in a final in Dhaka, which we won in the penalties at that stage, penalty strokes, and I had a role to play in that. So that stands out. Also, there was a four-nation tournament that we won in Australia, beating Australia and Germany, so two top nations, and we won that tournament in 2000. And then the Champions Challenge was I think a big step in the turnaround in Indian hockey, because we then made our way back into the top 6 of the world, which by winning the Champions Challenge, you qualify to play the Champions Trophy, which is the elite sort of top 6 in the world. So winning that tournament was, I think, a special moment to bringing India back onto that pathway of revival.
Back in 1989, in the Nehru Cup, you earned the Best Goalkeeper Award at a very, very young age of just 19 years. Recognitions as such, and the reason why I ask you this is because we want to go, when we talk a little bit about ahead in our conversation, I want to talk about, early recognitions shaping your career. So a recognition such as that, how did that shape your career going forward?
Yeah, wasn't expecting to win that award, but I was playing for Mahindra and Mahindra, which was a very star-studded team, and I had some very influential people who later on shaped my life. And to name one of them is Joaquim Carvalho, who was a former Olympian of 1984 LA Olympics, and he also captained India. He was my coach at Mahindra and Mahindra, and he picked me for that tournament, and I performed quite well, and that gave me the confidence and the belief that I actually belonged at that level. So at that age, to get that validation by getting the award was really crucial for me, and that led me to believe that I can actually go a lot further in this game.
That's so wonderful to know that when you have somebody who's watching you closely and is able to recognize you and to be able to pick out a player and say, no, that's the guy or that's the girl that I want, because we see so much potential. It's very hard to find, in such a competitive world in sport. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely agree. And yeah, so kudos to them for even thinking that I had the ability, because at that stage, at when you're 18, 19, everyone's almost on par at the same level. So for them to see and identify that I actually could get further was yeah, quite special. So I'm really grateful for for Joachim to identify that yeah, I had the potential to go further.
No, that's always a bit of a pat on the back, and also gives you a little validation that you're on the right path, you're doing the right things. All your hard work is not going in vain, because often today, especially with the way that the generations have changed, um, because you've had such a big transition. Not only have you captained sides at different age levels, but you've also now you're coaching at different age levels, isn't it? And men and women, of course. But
Yeah.
because you've seen that transition, it's so very important for that to come. And I think the generation today is always seeking for validation, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And fortunately, back at that time, we had lesser distractions. Like millennials and Gen Zs have a lot more going on in their lives. So I think that validation really is important to keep them going. So I think it's really important for us, and working through different age groups helps you see that and helps you identify. It helps you notice a lot more things, and it makes us as coaches more adaptable. So we're constantly learning. We're constantly learning from the different athletes that we train. So it's an ongoing process.
You've had a from a coaching perspective, of course, you transition from being a player to coach. A lot of athletes, they do make that transition. Personally, I made it for a short period of time as well, before the other side did come up. And I was not, to be very honest, I'm not a very good coach. I did the qualification because it was part of the process. Everybody was doing it. They said, this is something that happens with athletes normally. You play for a certain period of time and there you go. Then you start to become a coach. And if things go very well, you keep doing your coaching levels and then you'll be like the national team coach or something on those lines.
Yeah,
However, I was probably in that lot. I remember who was doing their level one, level two, level three. I
yeah.
remember very distinctly, I was the one who never enjoyed it. I was the one that was very, very bad at my coaching job. Like, I thought I was doing such a bad job. In You ask me to mentor a little child,
Yeah,
I can do that. I think I can change that mindset. But
right.
when it comes to coaching, I don't think I do a very good job. So kudos to you, Jude, because I know how hard coaching is. I know how hard my coaches worked with me. So it's a tough job.
Yeah.
And just to keep that in mind, how did you evolve from health and fitness to a full-time coach, and what was your motivation behind your move to New Zealand when you retired in 2002?
So when we retired, it was mainly for quality of life. My older son Brett was born while I was still playing for India, and that time it wasn't as it is now, where you had kids around and those kind of things. So it was um, was a bit different. But I realized at that stage that I was always going to move for quality of life. So that was the sole reason. So hockey was not really a motivator for me when I moved to New Zealand. It just happened to come along the way.
Okay, and your if I may ask, because there are so many opportunities, right? Once you retire from playing, at least back in the day, like I said, the only transition was to coaching. But
Yeah,
now, if you think of it, and if maybe we fast forward and say, maybe you've retired just a few years ago, and there are so many different opportunities, right? You can get into operations, you can get into broadcasting. I know you
yeah,
do a little bit of broadcasting as well. I
yeah,
have a little birdie has told me that information. But
yeah.
what was the main reason that you went for coaching, leaving all the other possible roles with the sport?
Yeah. For me, I've always believed in trying to give back to the sport. And I was always trying to see how can I actually give back to a sport that has given me everything. And so coaching was something that comes to me very naturally. So I'm a reasonably patient person, and for me, it's when you're coaching, you're just trying to. For me, it's all about the athlete. So I have no ego. It's not about me as a coach. It's about trying to bring the best I can out of the athlete. Now, not everyone is going to represent the country or go on, to play for India or for their country or for whatever. But for me, it is how can I enable that person to be the best that they can be. And for me, that was my driving force. Was to make an impact, try to give back to the sport that has given me everything, and that's why I got into coaching, because I thought that's where I could offer a lot more than the other aspects that I dabble in.
You mentioned something very interesting. You said not everyone is going to go on and represent their nation. When you're coaching today, whether it's young boys or girls or men or women, how important is it for any athlete today to have that realization or a bit of a reality check that, hey, I'm putting X number of hours of work over, a month, 2 months, whatever maybe. But there is this big reality that, I may not be in national colors. How important is that reality check?
Yeah, I think that's really important, because that self-awareness piece is very, very important for every athlete, right? So everyone's trying hard, everybody's working hard, but some have a little bit more talent than others, right? So not and the person who's missing out is not missing out through lack of effort, but and or sometimes you could have an injury that prevents you from going ahead, or various factors. Life happens. So, but having that awareness that I'm playing sport to be the best I can, and that's where I never talk about selection. I can get you here, I can get you there. What I tell my athletes, I'll get you to be the best that you can be, and that's the whole focus for me. And whatever comes along the way is then a byproduct and a bonus of the work we're putting in.
There have been, a lot of instances, of course, in your coaching career that you would have come across so many different characters of athletes, personalities that come across. But the major distinction in sport today that everybody is talking about is how sport for men is different from sport for women. Do you think that they're actually that far apart, or is that gap getting bridged closer and closer?
I think there's always a difference in ability, physical abilities. But when you look at the technical, tactical aspects, I mean, like if you talk about women's hockey and men's hockey, I feel coaching women's hockey for the last 10, 12, 14 years, I don't know how many years, but I think the subtleties in the women's game is a lot better. And you can actually see them in the men's game. Well, in the men's game, it's more power packed. It's more of a power game, but you still see a lot of good subtleties in the women's game. So I see almost, except for the physical difference, I don't see too much of difference in terms of strategy, structure, and those kind of things. The girls work equally hard, and they do everything that the men are doing. So there's no difference in terms of that aspect of the game.
I had a privilege to interview a former cricketer from India, and he said, it's the first time that I'm coaching a women's team. So I actually did very cheekily ask him, I said, are we better? So he said, y'all are very good for where y'all think y'all are. So, he said, you're good. It's very nice to hear that there's not much difference. But he said the one thing that men do versus one thing that women don't do is men overthink the game too much. They strategize too much. Whereas women, if they feel that there is something right, and it's based on intuition, if they've got a good energy behind it, they'll go ahead and they do it. They won't think about it too much. They're very intuitive. So if something feels right to them, they'll go ahead and do it. Do you think that's right even for hockey?
So my personal experience with coaching women in hockey for a long time, especially here in New Zealand, It's they're more they want more detail. You've got to give girls more detail and explain things in detail to them because they want to know every aspect of what you're trying to do. Once you get that across, they'll execute what you want them to do. With men, with boys, it's different. It's I think you can just say it, and they don't take things personally. With girls, you have to be a little bit more tactful, and you've got to be. I think that's where the emotional intelligence of a coach comes in. So knowing what to say, because you can't say the same thing to a guy and to a girl. It's the two different um, people altogether, right? So I find it. I find you have to be more tactful and more detailed with girls than with boys. Um, yeah, that's just speaking from my opinion on it.
I would want to say I think we're naturally very curious. We always want to get into more details about why, what, how, but why. We keep asking that question about why. Why does it have to happen this way, and why can't it happen the other way? And
Absolutely.
like you very rightly mentioned about communication as well,
Yeah.
between how you communicate with men athletes versus female athletes. I had a
Yeah.
coach that had come from India a very, very long time ago. And because I grew up in the UAE and, she had come from India. And she
Yes.
said, even though you're a female athlete, if you come to India, you will not even survive for, she said, 2 days. Because if I end up speaking to you the way I speak to my female athletes in the country,
Yeah.
you will stop playing the sport because y'all are too protected. Y'all are not tough in the head. And I think that shaped a lot of who I ended up to be.
Right.
Today, there would be 10 people who'd come and say 10 things, but maybe out of that 10 thing, half percent would make a big difference. Otherwise, it wouldn't.
Right. Right.
Otherwise, it wouldn't.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
You've worked with the Black Sticks women for years now and
Yes.
the Auckland women's teams. What have been some of your biggest learnings in these roles?
Yeah, and like for me, I have a growth mindset, right? So I want to keep getting better. And with my time with the Black Sticks, I learned a lot from the coaches that were there in the program. Was fortunate to work with Mark Hager, who's now coaching the Australian men team. So I worked with Mark for around 7 years and learned a lot from about how he runs the program, and just by observing and being in the same camp as and as him. So even with Auckland, it was a process. I coached Auckland for 6 years, crossed through a couple of national championships, and it was a constant learning process because initially, as I came from India, and as you rightly mentioned, that our coaches talk to us differently. Um, you had to learn that that style doesn't work, and especially not now with current athletes. So you're dealing with a different generation. So I had to sort of learn, and I did a lot of upskilling in those areas. I did a lot of learning to better myself, and learning from my peers and coaches that I worked under. So that helped me shape my current coaching career.
Would have, if I ask you to rewind back, say 30 years, when you were just finishing playing, and I'd ask you at that point of time, would coaching was coaching still your first choice? Would it, considering how it has all changed, the sporting sector is evolving every day. It's evolving right now as we have this conversation.
Yes.
Somewhere something is changing. It's evolving. The way the game is played or delivered is evolving. Would coaching still be your first choice?
If I had to do it all over again, I wish I know now what I knew. You know, w- w- um, if I wish knew then what I know now. Um, at that stage, when I just retired from playing, I was just playing for India. You're like on a high. You think you know it all, but the longer I spent in coaching, I just realized I was just scratching the surface, and I had a lot of learning and development to do. So Yeah, it would have been my go-to sort of career, but I would have gone about things a lot differently than how I actually did.
So I'll share a little experience of my own. I remember I was still playing cricket for the UAE at that point of time,
Yeah.
and the Asian Cricket Council had because they knew that cricket in the region was growing, so they said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to send three experts from our side, and we're going to put them into we'll please identify a group of, I think, about 15 to 20 individuals, men and women both, and we would like to put them in this coaching program, and we'll give them a level 1 certificate. Now level 1 is very easy to get,
Yeah.
especially from a cricketing standpoint. um, I remember we had a 1 week course. At the end of the week, we had our assessments, after which we were given a level 1 program. And they said, now you're a level 1 coach, you can coach. So, as per ACC regulations, if you're a level 1 coach, you can coach any international team under 16.
Okay.
So, men, women, whoever, under 16, that's the regulation they have. Of course, that has now changed with the evolution of the sport, but
Right.
that what it was at back of the day. And I was still playing. Coaching was something that I did as a side hustle on days when I knew that I didn't have, the season was off or something like that. So I did dive myself into coaching. But something that course taught me was a lot more about the game. I thought that changed the way that I saw the game completely.
Yes.
As a player, of course, we know what the sport would be and, the things that we do. But I think as a coach, when you do these courses or when you qualify yourself, it changes your perspective and how you look at the sport. Does this also account for hockey?
100%. You just start viewing the sport with a different lens. And I think it was easier as an athlete because I just had to focus on myself, on my preparation, on my game, on me. But as a coach now, you're depending on the size of your program, you're dealing for anywhere from 18 to 45 athletes, and now
Right.
your awareness is a lot more than what it was as a player. So yeah, so that's it's a big difference evolving from those two mindsets because you're yeah you definitely view it with a different lens.
You're also a broadcaster. You also do a lot of commentary that I know of. You've been on that side as well.
Yeah.
How different is sitting in that chair and viewing the game versus being a coach and viewing the game?
I think it's easier sitting in a com box because you're not really analyzing as a coach because in as a coach you're analyzing in real time and you pay the price in real time. So if you make a mistake, you're actually paying right there. In the com box, I can just go, oh, sorry, I think I made a mistake there, and I can and it doesn't hurt me. But yeah, and then I think it's easier in the com box because you go on as an expert panelist, right? You're not the lead person. I think it's harder as a lead anchor because you've got to fill space. But as an expert, you're just talking to the situation at the time, and that's I think a lot easier for us as coaches because we do that anyway. So it's more succinct because it's just a short bite.
I think it's for commentary, because you don't really also have to take sides. It becomes a lot more easy for you to kind of just be in the neutral and be like, this is what it is. I'm not going to take a side. I will give my opinion, but we don't really need to favor anybody. And very rightly you said, because you're not the coach, the result really doesn't matter to you, right?
Correct.
It's not
Correct.
reflective of the result that it's going to be of the match, whatever it
Yeah,
may be.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. You're just stating the obvious, basically, or adding a little bit of a technical aspect to what's going on the field.
In 2021, you became the head coach of Sakura Japan. And, again, that was a women's team that you were the coach of. What were some of the challenges and some of your high points when you guided Japan to Paris 2024? I think you're an Olympian yourself. You've represented India in the Olympics.
Yes.
taking another team to the Olympics, where, of course, they also played the country you originated from. What
Yes.
were some of the challenges and high points, and how do you mentally, keep yourself to the team that you're coaching? Because it becomes so hard as a human being, isn't it? Because your heart and mind are then fighting against each other.
Yes, I was when I first took over Sakura, Japan in 2021, straight after the Tokyo Olympics. It was a real big challenge because I walked into that right in the middle of COVID. So when I left New Zealand, the day I was leaving New Zealand, Japan shut down their borders. So I was leaving New Zealand to join the team in Korea to play an Asian Champions Trophy. So I met the team there, and then I was supposed to go back into Japan and then, make my entry into Japan. Because Japan had shut down their borders for foreigners, I was stuck in Korea for around 2 months.
Oh, wow.
And then the team goes back from Korea. So we end up winning that tournament, my first tournament in charge of Japan. And so now this is an easy gig. So and then we go into the second tournament was in Oman, and I still haven't left Korea. I'm still stuck in Korea because I can't go anywhere. New Zealand, I couldn't get back into New Zealand because their border restrictions were very, very strict, and I was 10,000 on the waiting list to get back into New Zealand. So I'm sort of stuck in no man's land. So we played the other tournament in Oman. I got the team to come there 10 days earlier and working on Zoom, basically running instructions, having team meetings and those kind of things online. We end up winning that tournament as well. And then I thought, shit, this is really easy. So 2 from 2. And then we win the Asia Cup. We qualify for the World Cup. And then, finally after that, after 2 months in limbo, I got all my clearances and I entered Japan after 2 months in Korea and Oman and various places. So it was quite a challenge because that uncertainty of not knowing where you're going to be or what's happening. Because normally on a tour you just go for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever time frame, and then you're going back home. Here I didn't know what I was doing.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it was. I think some of the most challenging times I had to face mentally as well during that period. Just the uncertainty of not knowing.
You've coached the Japan women's team to an Olympic qualifiers win over India, the country you originate from. I mean, that was just brilliant. And when I say the battle between the heart and the mind, sometimes because you've already represented India, even though it's a women's team, but still, that connect. You've represented the country with so much pride. How, as a coach, how do you manage to balance this battle between the heart and the mind? Because even today, when I see the UAE women, sometimes they do play India women, and it's a major, it's a major clash because India is my country. On any other tournament, I'm wearing the India jersey and I'm cheering them on.
Yeah.
And here, it's a jersey that I've also worn myself. And it kind of just puts me in a very difficult situation mentally. How did you manage it? And how did you get Japan to win over India? So let's decode that entire masterclass here today.
Well, yeah, it's always it's very conflicting, and I found it more challenging when I first started with the Black Sticks, because then I was still not as professional as I am now. I have more time under my belt now with coaching, so I have adapted a lot better. But that game against India was, I think one of the defining moments for me as a coach. We had lost to India 5 times before that in previous tournaments over the last 2 years.
Whoa.
So we hadn't beaten India, but we knew it was a high pressure game for India. And being on the other side of the equation, playing for the Indian team, I know what the pressures of playing at home are. So we never talked about winning. We never talked about doing, we talked about strategy. What are we trying to achieve here? We try to, try to neutralize India's strength, because India is very, very strong team. And we knew if we let them play freely, we'd get killed. So we tried to shut down a few avenues. We tried to, like I told them, there are 10,000 people in that stadium. It's a beautiful stadium in Ranchi, but the crowd is on top of you. It feels like 50,000. Like you can't hear the umpire's whistle. So I said, like the best way to silence a crowd is to score first. And it's one of those games where it's probably never happened in my life again, but it's one of those things that everything went to plan. We score in the first 5 minutes. We execute. And I said, the longer we keep India from scoring, the better, the more desperate they're going to get, the more we are in this game. And we just played one quarter at a time. We just didn't think too far ahead. And every quarter, I was expecting a change in strategy from India, and that didn't come. So I said, no, let's stick to, because I was already had plan B in place in case they counter something. But that didn't change for almost the entire game. So I could actually stick to what I planned and what the girls planned. And all credit to the girls for executing what we planned, and they just played out of their skins. It's one of those games that everything fell our way. India was a bit unfortunate. They had their chances, but our defense was outstanding throughout that tournament, actually. So we were probably in peak form at that stage when we played against India. So I don't know how, but things worked our way. And the girls executed what we planned, so it's pretty cool.
Coaching is so much beyond just a normal conversation, or a straight one-to-one communication, which is a two-way communication between you and the athletes. I was once told by one of my coaches, who is even today very close to me, and I really look up to her. She said something very interesting, and of course she's from Delhi, she's North Indian, so you can only imagine how she must have said it in the exact dialect.
Yes.
And she said, you see that door over there? By the time you have walked through the door and you've come to me, I've already assessed you about how much capacity you have and how much capacity you don't have. And I believe that, because as a university professor now, and when I teach, by the time the student walks through the door and has taken their seat, I've already assessed them. So do you think this understanding that we have, that is beyond language, changes the way that we understand coaching, teaching in sport or in general?
Yes, I think, like they say in an interview, the first 3 seconds, right, is whether it highlights whether you have the job or you don't have the job. So your first impressions are everything. But also, I think being in coaching long enough, you learn not to purely go by those assessments, because sometimes people are different, right? We're all built differently. So I check for understanding. I look more for understanding now. I take the time to ask the extra questions. I take the time to see, can I help you in any way? Just to try to see if I can break down some barriers. And like communication is, as you rightly mentioned, it's not only verbal, it's like the non-verbal communication as well. And I try a lot to not make judgments. I try to keep it as open as possible and give the benefit of the doubt to the athlete, because a lot of athletes open up later once they know you. So for me, the most important aspect there is try to understand your athlete better. Once you understand your athlete, once you build trust, then your communication channels will open a lot more.
And I completely agree. And I'm just hoping that in the first 3 seconds I've done my job. So I think we're quite into this conversation. So I think I've got the job. I would like to take that as a yes.
Absolutely,
So,
100%.
Okay, great. That's happy news for me. Um, Sport is growing very, very quickly and widely, right? I was reading something very interesting yesterday, and they said that by 2032, the industry is going to be worth in trillions of dollars. So it's beyond something that you can even imagine. Like I thought we were still talking in millions and billions. Now we've gone to the trillion mark, where the industry is growing rapidly across different sports. Franchise sport also has become such a big thing in the world today,
Yes.
right? No matter whether we are talking about basketball, football, of course, for a long time they were into franchise sport, right?
Yes.
We talk about hockey, we talk about cricket, we talk about volleyball now, we talk
Yeah.
about we
Kabaddi.
talk about badminton, kabaddi, we
Yeah.
talk about tennis. Now everything is moving towards franchise sport, right?
Yeah.
As a head coach of the inaugural Women's Hockey India League with Surma
Yes.
HC, how did you manage a multinational squad and integrate that under 21 Indian talent? Because again, it's an Indian hockey league. The youth needs to be included. The league has been formed for them. The international players are just a bit of a value add to the squads. How did you
Yes.
manage that?
So as I mentioned earlier, I like to know the athletes. So I had a sit down with every athlete in the team just to get to know them, and I did that one on one. Being Indian, I can speak the language. Some my Hindi is not super fluent, but I can speak reasonably well, and that helped me break down a lot of barriers, helped me understand the girls a lot better. And I think because I'm Indian, the girls were able to open up to me a lot more as well. So I got to know them first as people. We talked about their families. We didn't talk hockey at all. We just talked about
Hmm.
your families. I try to get to know them as people. And because they're under 21, they're young girls, it was important for me to build that trust first before I start training training them and setting expectations. What are we trying to achieve? So we did all of that right before we even started doing any hockey. So I think I got a lot of the success was because I knew the athletes, I knew the person who I was dealing with, I knew the background that they came from, the families, where they grew up. There were tears at that first meeting. There were some girls who were in tears and telling their stories, and so I knew how hard they had to work. And having come through humble beginnings myself, I could identify with them, and I think I could show empathy and understand them a lot more. So I think that was probably part of building that connection, because I believe that the greater the connection off field, the stronger your performance on field will be.
And it's such a beauty of sport, isn't it? You mentioned empathy. um, I think, and I believe this very, very strongly, that compassion,
Yeah,
empathy, and humility is something
yeah,
that sport has taught me, and these are values that I take with me wherever I go.
yeah,
It takes you a long way in life. It teaches you a lot. It's not about showing that to the world, but also these values that you hold so very close towards you.
yeah.
Everything has become so transactional today. The relationships that you build, etc. I have a lot of parents who come because they want to enroll their students in their
Yes,
in our sport programs. Something that again, they think it's very transactional, like
yes,
any other degree program, right? And sometimes find it very challenging to explain to them that, remember, that your daughter or your son who's enrolling into this program is, we're not going to give them a degree at the end of 3 or 2 years.
correct.
We're shaping them into an individual or a personality
Correct.
that will stand out in comparison to all the other graduates,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Do you believe that is true? Or,
Abs-
because I mean, it's, we're shaping them, aren't we?
Absolutely. You're just shaping their thoughts. Shaping their mindset. You just That's exactly what we're doing, and then what they do with it is up to them, and they can add to their skill set, whatever in whatever way, because a lot of other people will also influence and shape that thinking. But that exactly what we are doing is we are helping them on that pathway to where they want to get, by shaping their mindset.
And I agree with you. A lot of individuals probably don't understand that sport does teach you so much in life. It gives you values that nobody else does, right?
Yeah.
I know not everybody can be a leader. Not
Yes.
everybody can have that leading philosophy. I get it. But I just feel that every athlete who's involved in sport is a leader in some way or the other because they're leading their own lives individually.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, absolutely. We've all got leadership qualities. Some people lead from the front. Some people actually lead from behind. I'm more a lead from behind kind of leader. So I'm not one screaming and shouting on the sideline. I'm the calm sort of person on the sideline. We have leaders in the team, so we actually develop them to play the
Right.
game on the field, because I'm not playing. I cannot influence what happens on the field, so I want them to make decisions. So yes, I would identify as a more lead from behind kind of leader. So all we're trying to do is develop leaders within the sport. And you as you rightly said, we're all leaders in our own way,
Correct.
playing playing sport. Yeah.
You've coached a top goalkeeper like Savita. And of course, because every athlete, you said, it's so important for you to individually have a one-to-one conversation, to know their story, to know
Yeah.
where they've come from. It's so important to bond like that. How did that, because there would be a lot of unique dynamics to that, how did that relationship evolve?
Again, by having just a normal conversation like we're having now, just getting to know her a little bit better. Savita's a fantastic goalkeeper. Like, she's played over 300 test matches for India, so that's a lot of experience there. I can't teach her how to keep in goal. So we have conversations, and it's more about, do you think this would work, or do you think, how do you think you would see this unfold, and just having those kind of conversations. And it's more like, not telling her what to do, but getting her to think, would this be more effective, or what are your thoughts on that, getting her buy-in, because eventually she makes the decisions. She's experienced enough. She has the skills. We almost, I think, worked together. That's the way I would put it. I don't say like I was coaching her. We were just having discussions. And yeah, you don't coach someone who's played 300 test matches and won FIH goalkeeper of the year multiple
Of
times.
course.
Yeah, you just have conversations. And she's a very coachable athlete, very humble, very down to earth. So it's very easy to work with her. Always up for a chat, always up for discussions. And we drove a lot of the leadership through Savita. So and as I said before, I'm all about developing leaders, because eventually it's their messages on the field that we want to hear. We
Correct.
want them to empower them to make decisions on the field.
Correct. And that's so important for any sport. You are a holder of the Level 5 FIH Coaching Educator certification, one of the very few globally that I did my research and I know of.
Yeah.
How does that influence your mindset when it comes to working, especially, for franchise leagues where you're working with players from different cultural backgrounds completely? How does that change and influence your mindset?
Yeah, so again, I have to look at it through a different lens, and we use various techniques, right? So for me, one of the is like push and pull. So you push a little bit of information, you pull out more information, and let the athlete talk more, rather than me telling. So I do less telling now. I try to extract information, because that way then I know that there's understanding. And I learned that through my time in Japan, where when I worked in New Zealand, it was really easy, because the athletes understand English, right? So you're speaking in a language where everybody understands, and you pass on a message, and yep, you've got it, and they go out and execute. It was a bit different in Japan, because culturally they won't say no to authority. So they will agree
Right.
with everything you say. And
Right.
but on the field, I wasn't finding that happening initially. Then I had to step back and look at, they're saying yes because they're too scared to say no. I had to actually ask them to redo our team talk. So I would talk to it. I would talk through a press or something technical, and then I would ask each line, like the attackers, the midfielders, and the defenders, to relate it back to me, so I know that they've understood it. So that way, I sort of started looking more for understanding. So I think as an educator, you learn to listen a lot more, because listening is probably the most important skill in communication. So I tend to listen a lot more than I speak when I'm trying to work with athletes and coaches as well now. So I coach coaches at the moment. So I do a lot of listening, which wasn't quite the case earlier when I first started my career. So yeah, that learning process has helped me a lot over the years.
Sport can teach you a lot many things, but the one thing I think sport actually teaches you, especially also when you move beyond your playing days, is it teaches you how to be a good listener and a better
Absolutely.
listener. I think that's
Absolutely.
something that really teaches you, right? um we have been talking so much about your journey. We've been talking about how, and I think in our conversation so far, we've seen sport has evolved so much over a period of time, right? From the time that it was
Yes.
played back in the day to today, etc. We see equipment getting better. We see players looking a lot fitter because of research, etc. That plans out, and all of that movement that goes ahead for. Especially from a space of performance analysis, where do you see sport evolving, particularly?
So I think the strength and conditioning aspect is a big aspect, and I'll speak specifically for hockey,
Mm.
because that's a big part of performance. Having a good strength and conditioning program, because then you can periodize your whole planning leading into a tournament. Okay, so we've got GPS monitors on each athlete, so we know exactly how much, what the player load is in each games, and I have data over that for, say, for Japan over the last 3 years, and I know exactly what you're capable of, what your output is. How much we do testing on, like yo-yo testing. So I think there was a famous cricketer who I won't name, but the Indian media went nuts about him running 18 on the yo-yo. I
Yeah.
had 6 girls in our national team who ran 20, 21.5. So it's a different game, different dynamics. So we do a lot of testing. So I know, because it has to be measurable, right? So I know exactly what we are, before going into the World Cup. This was what our fitness level was, and it directly correlates to performance. So the other aspect is video analysis. So we do a lot of video analysis. So every training is videoed. So we replay that video. We play clips back to the athletes. We share footage. So these aspects of it are really, really important. Like, especially with the player tracking, the
Right.
GPS monitor that we have. That plays a big part in me understanding where the athlete is in their in a tournament, how much load we've put in, what are their repeat sprints, for example, how many times are they going at top speed, how many repetitions they're doing at that speed. So that aspect of the game has just evolved. We didn't even know that when we were playing. I had no idea about. We didn't even have monitors. We didn't have video.
I
We were
agree.
just playing on memory. And you went and watched games. You watched. We didn't really have footage. We didn't even have someone who did video analysis with us when I was playing. So you learned. We are fortunate now. We have all these tools at our disposal, and I use them. Like, I can't survive without them, because it becomes a really important part of your planning. And the sport is evolving. That's getting more and more detailed. So even with the, for example, in a game, I would know say if we're playing against Germany, I would know the Germans attacking from the right 47% of the time, from the middle of the field 20% of the time, from the left of the field. So I would get that detail while the game is in progress. So then I can change tactically during that game and have a positive sort of impact on the game. So the analysis part is just going through the roof at the moment.
And it's wonderful because of technology also supporting the analysis. I think the insights are lot better. um, I often, I often speak to a lot of the young athletes who are in a particular sport at this moment, and I always tell them that you're very lucky you've got technology on your side. I wish I had that at back in my time. I probably would have played maybe 5 years longer
Yes.
than
Yes.
I have today, because it's so important for these back end understanding, because you don't see that as a player. When you're
Correct.
there, you're so focused on what's happening in the moment.
Correct. And with a lot of technology, Shavi, it is evidence based, right? So it's not like I think you're doing this or I think you were
Correct.
doing this. This is evidence based. I'm showing you the video. This is what 9 times you went down left. So can we get you going down right? So it's evidence based. So and as you rightly said, like as players, we don't have that awareness. But when someone
Correct.
points it out, and I have that conversation with an athlete, because I can show them the video, it has far greater effect.
Correct.
And it's not up to my perception, or I think you're doing this. You are
Correct.
doing this. So I think
Correct.
that part of analysis is really cool because it's evidence based.
It's evidence based. Um, at Middlesex University Dubai, obviously as part of our London Sport Institute Dubai, we have introduced our sports science education programs, three different areas. Um, of course, sport in the Middle East is growing, but we're also looking at it from a global standpoint. How do you think the sporting sector would be impacted with such opportunities now for a career progression for athletes when they think about what am I going to do after my playing years? And the overall economics of sport, how do you think this is going to be influenced, or how will this change?
I think it gives you pathways, right? It just gives you, as an athlete, back in the day, you really didn't have much after you stopped playing. So um, now this is giving you an avenue to stay connected to the sport and specialize in a field that you're already very good at, and you just take a pathway that suits you. So if you're really good at analysis, on the analysis side of it, then you could get into the video analysis side of it. If you're good at strength and conditioning, or fitness is your sort of your niche, then you could get into that aspect and become a trainer. So it gives you more pathways going into national programs and across the board. I think it's just giving more opportunity for athletes. You can become, get into broadcasting, for example. So
Yes.
so it gives you more avenues now, which wasn't there earlier. So earlier that those avenues were mainly in cricket, but now different with, as you said, all the franchise sports that are available. It gives you a chance to upskill yourself to actually get into one of those one of those teams that you want, because you now have opportunity.
No, and I agree with you, because sport is now going that commercial way, and when it goes the commercial way, a lot of wider opportunities they do open up. It's a reality.
Yes.
The economics, they change, and
Yes.
the avenues for finances to roll in and roll out become a lot bigger and a lot better for a lot
Absolutely.
of different sports.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
One habit before of course, we close off for the day, and before I let you go, last couple of things, of course, that I want to bring out of you. It's been such a wonderful conversation. I'm inspired. I'm definitely inspired this morning. One habit that defines you as a coach.
My attention to detail. So I like to do the simple things really, really well. So my whole philosophy is less is more. So I don't try to do fancy stuff. I'll do the simple things really, really well. And being across different programs, like, you're blessed if you have a fully funded program, right? Where money is not an objective. Um, I've worked in programs where we didn't have that luxury. So my mindset was, let's do the best with what we have. So let's focus on what we have. I'm a glass half full guy rather than a glass half empty. So I think, what can I do positively to impact this situation? So I'm always looking. That's my whole mindset as a coach. Never satisfied with what I know. I'm always looking for growth. How can I get better? I'm looking for those one percenters, trying to improve at every opportunity that I get. So yeah, very simplistic in my philosophy, nothing fancy, but yeah, less is more. My whole approach is less is more.
And I think that should be a philosophy that a lot of people should follow, even generally in life, because these days, the way that things are changing, a lot of people want to do too much, and
Yes.
sometimes you don't need to do too much, and less is definitely going to be more. Any message, anything for the young minds that will watch our interaction, who are looking to find a footing in sport, whether it is as an athlete, whether it is as looking for a career in sport, some guidance, something that will inspire them to go on to this path?
Firstly, play sport because you enjoy playing sport. Whatever sport is, just firstly, you got to enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, it's going to be tough. And secondly, don't play for selection. Play to be the best that you can. Be the best person that you can, and eventually, selection is a byproduct. If you're good enough, you're going to make it. But if you're going out there, just go out there to do the best that you possibly can. And yeah, but for me, the most important message is enjoy it, because like I love sport. I love hockey. So it doesn't become, it's not a job for me. Like, I could do this 7 days a week and I don't even think about it. It doesn't tire me. It's like something I enjoy doing. So seek enjoyment in whatever sport you're playing, and do your best, because that's all you can do.
Jude, once again, thank you so much for all your insights. It's been more than a very tactical masterclass. I think this has been a very emotional, very heartfelt masterclass, and I've loved this exclusive also because we've spoken about a lot of things that a lot of people don't generally speak about. They shy away from talking about the emotional aspect and the heart to heart attachment that we have with sport. A lot of people, they shy away from doing that, and like I said earlier as well, everything is so transactional these days that we're tight and we're bounded by those boundaries. But I'm glad that this conversation was way beyond those boundaries.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being on the show, and yeah, I hope I could add something and make a difference in even one person's life. I think that's job done. But no, it was really a pleasure talking to you, and really enjoyed my time. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Jude. I am that one person you've influenced positively, for sure. I will take that. And when I was told that I have to interview you and I have to take you on the show and we have to have this conversation, and I said, I must have done something right in my sporting career that I've had this privilege to have a conversation with someone like you, and it's been truly inspiring. So I must thank you for your time, for sharing everything so openly, your journey, and the evolution and everything that we've spoken about. I'm sure this is going to be inspirational. So thank you so much for joining us.
Most welcome. Thank you very much.
So this was our very first of the London Sport Institute powered by Middlesex University exclusive. We're going to come with more such interactions. We're going to come with more such exclusives with top athletes, top practitioners in sport. So don't go anywhere. You stay tuned with us regularly. We're going to bring you these features. Thank you very much for joining us.